the crypto ecosystem is growing. There's more traction from developers. There's more traction from traditional institutions and big brands. But to really go mainstream, it needs to be easy, fast, and inexpensive, which is pretty easy, right? OK, so to talk to us about how easy it is, we'll have Shaikh from Aptos Labs, Grace Torrellas of Polygon, and Anatoly Yakovenko from Solana Labs. And please welcome back to the stage moderator Jacquelyn Melinek. Thank you.
Hey everyone, hopefully you're not tired of this familiar face. I am back again, as Karine mentioned, with Anatoly from Solana, Grace from Polygon, and Mo from Aptos Labs. Honestly, I think this is a banger of a panel, and you guys should all hang out because very rarely do I feel like you get major blockchains together on stage. I don't know if you guys feel that way, but I do. I feel like it's like you get it like Pepsi and Coke together. You know, they don't want to be in the same place, but they'll do it, you know? But on that note, I feel like a big conversation I've had over the past 12 months is multi-chain integration. And what does multi-chain basically mean? It's basically what the word says, multi-chain, getting different blockchains to work together for the greater good. So to start, I'd love to hear how all three of these blockchains are kind of going towards that multi-chain world, or do you prefer to just be your own blockchain and forget everyone else?
Sure, I guess I can go first. I do think it's a multi-chain world for sure, but before I get into that, I think we just had a breaking announcement on how that's actually coming to life. Coinbase Pay just integrated with Petra, making payments available within the Aptos ecosystem as seamless as possible. So if you want to on-ramp or on-ref and play around with fiat within that space, it's easier than ever. And I think that's a good point to transition into a multi-chain world. I mean, we are in a multi-chain world. I'm here with my fellow panelists that have been building before Aptos has been building. And I think we're starting to see the deep work that all of us have done really come to fruition. Aptos is a layer 1 blockchain similar to Solana. And we think, of course, you have to focus on innovation at the layer 1, but that innovation should be distinct and different from everything else out there. Together, there can be some value accretion that can ultimately have multiples and order of magnitude effects greater over time. And that's starting to happen. It's starting to happen from all the years of work that we've been doing. SushiSwap just announced an integration with Aptos is a perfect example. An EVM-based DeFi protocol, AMM, that's been building for many years, realized they want to actually improve on the existing protocol. They can't do that where they are today, and so they're exploring new homes. And so the first non-EVM chain that they integrated was Aptos. And so this is a great marriage between people that have been building in previous ecosystems now taking full advantage of Aptos. And so by focusing on layer 1 innovations, you are able to attract talent that's been building in this space for a while and bring that multi-chain world to the forefront.
Wonderful. I love the fact that we start with multi-chain world.
This you guys all get along. Yeah.
This is great. I mean, I'm so happy to be here with these two leaders next to me as well. It's a very complex but yet very collaborative world that we're living in. Multi-chain world makes it much easier for us to start moving the technology forward. At Polygon Labs, we believe in definitely a world that is multi-chain, and it is where we're heading as Polygon 2.0 will actually come forward. So we are building an ecosystem of multi-chains that will be interoperable, and this is some keywords that we're actually kind of still working towards and making sure that we prepare the infrastructure for this interoperability, as it is also composability, making sure that each chain offers a use case that is well prepared for that particular chain. And I feel like that's where the users will have better possibilities to interact in a blockchain space or in a Web3 space, but not thinking about how do I bridge assets to this network versus this other network, but just going there and having that sort of seamless continuity within the network. We call it a unlimited block space. So with that, zkEVM is the product that I'm actually lead of. And that's the one that is the genesis of all these products that are coming together within Polygon to create that multi-chain world. We have the layer 2s, which is the layer that we are concerned about. We are actually a scaling solution for Ethereum. But I'm happy to understand and to work together with other layers ones, as I feel very lucky to have Aptos and Solana as well here.
I mean, to keep things spicy, I'll say that there's going to be kind of a single chain, a single execution environment, and it won't really matter how many settlement environments there are. Kind of like it doesn't matter where USDC actually, which bank USDC finally settles in. But what matters is where like all the peer-to-peer or like merchant to consumer transactions occur. And why I think that that's a real possibility is because like the technology already exists today to basically move all of crypto transactions and a large portion of financial transactions onto one single unified layer 1. And within 20 years, we are going to see 1,000x improvement in hardware. So we're going to see 1,000x more capacity on a layer 1 that's a single giant atomic state machine. So you can imagine that you can fit everything into one place. And usually things are cheaper and faster, kind of more composable when they're in one place. I'm just being a little spicy. I love these folks and working with them, but for the sake of keeping the panel more interesting.
Is it going to be Solana then?
That's what this Solana's designed specifically with that in mind. Is how do we basically accelerate the development of the software so it can leverage as much hardware as we can and kind of ride that Moore's law. That doesn't mean that hardware obviously improves both Polygon and zero knowledge proofs and layer 2s and all these other things, but the vision is that that's kind of all you need is that kind of scale, and you can increase capacity to the point that you can fit everything. Kind of like, Google search, I think, is about 40 to 50,000 searches per second. I'm sure there's lots of other places where people do search in localized environments and things like that, but the top 100,000 searches per second all occur on Google. The rest kind of like the long tail doesn't matter. It's very possible that that's what happens in the future. So we'll see.
Yeah. All right. And then looking at kind of the title of the panel is about mass adoption. And to be honest, crypto really hasn't hit that first billion users. I know everyone calls it the next billion, but we haven't even hit first, so we'll call it the first billion. And on that front, I think one of the best ways for that to happen is by making it more accessible and understandable in terms of mainstream adoption. And Solana recently Solana Pay partnered with Shopify. We've seen Polygon partner with Disney. Mo, you mentioned some of Aptos' partnerships, NBC Universal, Coinbase Pay, etc. How do you think these partnerships have been successful or otherwise brought you to another audience that you might have not already had? How do you kind of quantify that?
I'll go first, I guess. Yeah, I used to work at a big company, and we did a lot of work in the innovation team with like lots of different startups. And I don't think that the CEOs or the boards of these Fortune 500 companies are going to care about crypto until they see like at least 1 to 2, maybe 5% of their revenues to be crypto related. And we're just really, really far from that. So like a lot of these are basically these early steps trying to get these companies to figure out how to run nodes, how to do settlement, and then build out use cases. So obviously, like I'm super excited about Solana working with Visa, and Visa, choosing Solana to do like settlement with USDC for cross-border transactions. That's a very powerful disruptive use case, and my hope is that they actually start seeing their own real revenues impacted by this, and then like that kind of opens the door for everything else. But crypto still like feels like, I don't know, like when Bank Americard launched and there was like in a small town. Like we're still in that stage with regard to like consumer adoption.
I guess that's me then.
Yeah, please.
So enterprise partnership is big in Polygon, and this is something that has made us really just go over that sort of chasm. We have a very good example with Reddit, for example. The 16 million single collectors have been able to use their avatars, and they have already crossed that path that we always think, it's going to be difficult for the first millions to get in there. And they immediately produced 40 millions in sales for avatars. They don't call it NFTs, they call it avatars. I find that a first step. It gives you a use case. It gives you the certainty that people are willing to go there. And I feel like the loyalty programs is still a big thing. We have a partnership with Lufthansa, where we are actually going into the whole loyalty points and rewards, and especially with multi-company exchange. So therefore, payments and other type of tokenizations still is a big thing. We have a good focus with banks. Nubank is one of them as well. And not too long ago, we did this really interesting workshop where we had 3 different banks, one stock exchange, one e-commerce, big e-commerce company, and they all were absolutely ready to get started. They had already their use case in which they would want to use it, the technology with, and they were ready to start creating that sort of path into it. So I feel like we are ready, definitely. And at Polygon, we are always welcoming those opportunities for sure.
Wow. So yeah, you raised a great point. There is, forget about billions of people. There's not one application that anyone in this room uses that has 1 million daily active users. And that's Web3 based. And that, I think, is something to just keep in mind as we think about innovation happening. And so how does that change, right? I do think that distribution from large enterprises has been interested. They've all dipped their toes. They've all experimented in previous protocols, but they just don't feel comfortable with the infrastructure being where it needs to be. Aptos was building a blockchain for billions of people, previously known as the DM Libra blockchain, and we knew the reliability issues and the performance issues and the cost issues of existing protocols was just not there for billions of users for Facebook. And so, when we went out there with our protocol, we realized this is something unique and special that we offer in the market. And so, we realized all these different use cases. Of course, it's amazing to see Web3 builders and developers get excited, but they haven't been able to break through yet. We've seen hints of product market fit in some applications, but nothing that actually has been sustainable for long term. This is where leaning into enterprises makes a lot of sense. And so when we have conversations with folks like MasterCard on how do you start building the next generation of financial infrastructure, well, you need identity and credentialing to work. And you need it to work for billions of people. And so that's something that we're working on with MasterCard, and we're excited about that. When we think about all the different challenges that things like AI are facing, having verified information, being able to share data to create new democratized AI models, Microsoft chose Aptos for their AI initiatives. And that's been amazing to see, months of work to get them to get over the finish line. And so when you need these large enterprises, you now start to get not only millions of users, but potentially billions of users using Web3 without having to even realize it. And NBC, as you mentioned, Jacquelyn, is a great example of that. We launched a movie with them where ticketing was made available through playing a game. That game led to prizes that someone won, and those prizes were a strong signal for NBC to say, hey, Mo likes this, Dracula-based game, and he can get tickets to a movie theater, to that movie because we have better signal there. And they can offer me incentives directly. While I'm playing this game, I'm winning what is an NFT. It's being stored in a wallet, and no one knows, right? I don't need to know that all this is happening at the back end. And so for us, Aptos' perspective is the tipping point will come when all this Web3 infrastructure gets abstracted and obfuscated completely to the background. And that's what we're starting to see with everyone starting to pick Aptos, and we're really excited about that. And I would agree, I think, with what Toly said. It's hard to tell where we are with the landscape today. There's no clear winner. And so working with enterprises for someone like Aptos starts us to get to that path of distribution at scale without people realizing it.
I would argue that not every partnership is a win, and I'm not specifically saying any of the ones that any of you mentioned, because I'm not inside the companies or foundations of how that looks for you guys, but which industries or companies do you think crypto companies and blockchain foundations should stay away from, that maybe you've had conversations with or worked with and you felt like this is not a value add, they're not ready yet, or they just don't want anything to do with this?
I think
Feel free to name names too if you want.
There's there were a lot of use cases, I think, that were like very much consulting driven, like tracking salmon on blockchain from 2017. And I think if you look at the use case and you strip away, like, can you just run this in a database, you kind of quickly realize that like that's doesn't have enough of a hook to actually depend on a public permissionless chain, and it's not going to work or deploy. So you have to analyze those. I think honestly the industry has gotten a lot better with its attempts to build credible credible things that get to market to consumers, and I haven't really seen as many of those as they were like really popular in 2017.
I would argue that it's not that they're not the right companies or sort of thing. It's probably, is this technology really there to cater to that particular use case? And I feel like that's one of the great problems that we were discussing and confronting. And the answer to that was to create an environment or an ecosystem where you would have multiple chains that could be very specific to particular use cases. And so the problem of we're really not great for you because we're totally decentralized, or because you need to comply with a certain particular conditions and maybe have some specific compliance that are regulatory based and they're important. I'm talking about maybe the fintech. That problem was solved with what we have now as CDK, which is a chain development kit, which it's essentially a Validium or a CK rollup that has data being stored separately. So it is a very efficient, fast, and cheap network or a protocol that can adjust itself to this particular needs. So I don't think there is such thing as these companies are not right. These companies don't get the technology that they need. And that's where the problem that we are fixing.
You agree with that?
I mean, tracking salmon on chain, 2017, that's a good one. And I do agree with that. I think another popular use case that was difficult to come to market was real-world assets or tokenization. And in 2017, that world felt pretty impossible. I founded a startup focused on that specifically. And that industry requires a lot of stakeholders being brought along the journey, right? Anyone from issuing those assets to underwriting and issuing those assets to ultimately distributing those assets, trading them, and then of course everything that happens beyond the issuance and post-trade settlements. Today, however, I think we're starting to see good signs of that evolving. Real-world assets has become a massive theme. And it's not only because all these stakeholders are now willing to come across on the journey, but they're willing to come across on that journey because all the pieces are there. Money is on chain with things like stablecoin. You just saw PayPal launch theirs over the summer, and that's a very strong signal for all of us. And you're starting to see trillion-dollar asset managers tokenizing money market funds and portfolios, and that's a very strong signal. And so, I would say what was once not possible and not a good use case has probably leapfrogged and become a massive use case. And we're very fortunate to have some of these trillion-dollar asset managers working and tokenizing real-world assets on Aptos.
I feel like a major thing nowadays is the need for a killer use case in crypto. That's a conversation I have all the time, and I'm sure you guys do too, especially about building on your own chains. And we talk about real-world assets. That's a category that some people think may be that killer use case. Do you think it will come from a crypto company or a traditional company that is using crypto or blockchain technology that then creates their own use case that would bring on mainstream adoption? Is that question making sense?
Yeah. I generally focus on crypto native companies to be the disruptors. Maybe because spent my career at Qualcomm, the stuff that I'm excited about are things like Deepin, like Helium and Hivemapper. So these are purely crypto token incentivized networks that deploy physical hardware and are able to kind of put all of the magic of crypto. You have decentralized ownership, you have crypto economics that incentivize people to go do something, and then that ties to consumer value, like a $5 data plan, from Helium. That to me is like the most disruptive, magical thing when all that stuff comes together. I think it's really hard. It would be, I don't know, nearly impossible, I think, to convince a telecom to do that, even though that seems like they should know how to do that too. And it's going to take like a small crypto scrappy startup to go prove that out. But once it's proven out, I think, they have a lot of smart folks working for them. They'll also figure out how to replicate that in-house.
I agree. I definitely agree. I think the next wave of disruption is definitely going to be within the crypto. I feel like there isn't an appetite for traditional companies, for Web2 companies, to change too much their business model. And I understand. I understand it has already been proven, and they are successful in the way that they are. I don't think that the need is so much in that space, but it would be in the crypto. And I mean, Ethereum already is a good example of how it has natively created this sort of audience and this sort of attraction, right? I mean, none of us would be here because this is where we are, and I feel this is just getting bigger. The audience that we are catering to is just get larger. We have bull markets, we have bear markets. We clean up, we bring people back again. It's kind of like the cycle that we go through. But definitely it will come from crypto companies.
So I think we've been waiting for some of those Web3 native crypto companies to showcase billion user applications. We haven't seen them yet. We've seen very strong signs in product market fit signals again. And I think for Aptos, we want to continue supporting those projects through foundation grants or giving them a path forward without having to go through the necessary Web2 journey. And I think that decreased friction will ideally help these projects come to market faster today compared to Web2 projects. However, I think maybe I'll give the spicy take on this question. We do feel that there is interest in enterprises that's bubbling up in a very aggressive way in the background. It may not appear that way today, but there are companies that are building some very interesting products that I'd love to talk about in the future. But I think a good analogy to pay attention to is companies have disrupted themselves in the past, right? I mean, we're here at Disrupt. Think about think about Netflix, right? They used to mail DVDs to your house, and they realized this doesn't work, and experimented with brittle infrastructure, unknown technology, and took a shot at streaming. Bold. And now all they do is streaming. It would sound ridiculous to have a DVD mailed to my house. And so large enterprises are absolutely willing to disrupt themselves. And for us, we are that infrastructure as Aptos that they're experimenting with that will be, in my view, some of the agents for disruption within these companies and themselves that allow them to exist in the future. In fact, I would say that maybe even more than 25% of their revenue might come from our technology. Bottom line improvement and inefficiency management may also come from this technology. And so things like interoperability and composability end up being features for a lot of these companies and how they exist in the future. So we're very excited about enterprise adoption.
Yeah, I think on that note, similar to what you're saying about PayPal, and the reason I asked that question is, as someone who covers this industry, I want to be optimistic that it will come from a crypto company. But there's also the chance that someone like PayPal or Reddit, who already have millions of users, will be the ones to do that. We saw Reddit launch some digital collectibles. I can't even say it because all I say is NFTs. And it ended up with millions of wallets, and PayPal launched their stablecoin, and we're still seeing how that will develop. But on that front, it also comes with a bit of red tape, I would call it. I talked about this on the last panel, but obviously the regulatory environment exists, and I have to ask you guys about this. How is that kind of impacting the way you operate your businesses, both in the States and globally?
I can take this one first. I mean, I'm surprised I'm not falling asleep. I just got back from Singapore.
But I'm keeping you awake.
That is true.
Yeah.
The energy from this crowd.
Yeah.
I was in Singapore last week. I was in Hong Kong the week before, and in Korea the week before that. And so, the amount of people at these conferences, the people that we meet, the enterprises that are U.S. based that end up showing face in Asia has been unbelievable. And so, I don't know, where we are today, and I know we were kind of chatting about this backstage. You have to look at the crowds. You have to understand where the world is moving. And for us, it's very exciting that we're seeing all this activity in Asia. But of course, we're a Bay Area-based company and a U.S. entity, and so we would love to see a lot of that activity be happening here just as much. So we are optimistic. There are things that we think are, again, good signals and tea leaves to read. But right now, I don't think the world is waiting for places where there's question marks. They're going to where they're seeing a lot of activity, and fortunately for us, it's in Asia right now.
From our side, we're a very regulatory-friendly team. So we understand where we need to go, and we're very global as well. So we make sure that we are providing the infrastructure that is right for those applications to be compliant. And I think that's where we put the most effort. We are protocol, and we try to decentralize as much as possible all the operations within the protocols, but those that are centralized are very clear. They have clear guidelines on how that centralization takes place and who's responsible for what. So from our side, we're always very friendly with this stuff, and doesn't really impact our business. Yeah.
I wrote an op-ed about this that was published in Fortune. I mean, I think, frankly, U.S. is losing its edge in innovation in crypto. Electric Capital published a report where they saw that the share of developers that are working on crypto dropped from 40% to 20%. In our own hackathons, we've even seen a worse drop. We went, I think, from something like 40% of participants being from the US now being closer to 10 in the latest one. And that's simply because there's no clear regulatory path for any US developer to do anything in crypto right now. So it's a very, very frustrating experience because all the best, some of the best engineers are in the US. US has been you look at the top innovative companies in the world, I think the top 5 are all United States based, and there's no reason why that shouldn't be the case for crypto as well. So really unfortunate, and some promising signs is there are 2 bills, they're not perfect, being worked through Congress. I hope that within a year or so, maybe if not this year, then next year, something gets passed, and then we can actually go back to building.
All right, yeah. I think it'll be optimistic on that front. It seems like we're going to get some regulatory clarity. But to wrap things up, let's say each of you could be the CEO of one of the other blockchains on stage. Which one are you picking and why? And you can't pick your own.
Is Ethereum a good answer?
Okay. I'm gonna say both. I like to be. I like because there's 2 worlds in here that I can think can be very well leveraged, and that they've offered a very good set of benefits. that can be really used for mass adoption. So I actually will be very happy to have both of this controlled under my power.
You went from diplomat to like monarch.
No, yeah, but it's
right.
that's how you start,
Anatoly, you guys
and then
can
you
only
take it
pick
all over.
one. You could pick one. I like Grace pick two.
I would pick Polygon. I think the investment in like zero knowledge VMs has been really cool to see play out. I can't focus on everything, so like Solana's focused on a particular path for optimizations. I would love to have also been able to do 10 other things, and zk is one of those things that's a complete nerd snipe and very fascinating, and just kind of like miracle that it works today in any way.
No.
It's easy for me. I mean, I started off my career at Consensus in the Web3 world, and so been a big Ethereum fan, still am today. And obviously have a lot of respect for what Polygon's has done for that community. And I think what I love about Polygon is they're actually looking at what we're building and implementing it. We issued something called Block STM, which Polygon helped kind of take to the forefront and adopt as well. And it led to some improvements. So I think there's this amazing synergy that we've already been seeing.
We love that. Yes.
And yeah, we're very proud of that. So
Thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome. A lot of Polygon love up here today. Mo, Grace, Anatoly, thank you so much for taking the time to talk. And thank you to everyone for listening in.
It's been wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.